Alrighty, well, we got section 1 done. We're ready to dive into section 2, creating and using variables. So this part we can actually come back and close out our HTML. We're done with that. We're past all that. We're good to go there. So I'm going to go ahead and close out HTML. I'm also going to close out style CSS because we're no longer in that. We're going to focus in on the JavaScript. So here we have kind of our breakpoint here for our JavaScript code. And the first thing it asks us to do is create a variable and set its value to the string hello. So I'm going to start by creating a variable. Now, if you watch the videos, you see there's a couple ways to do this. What you choose to do at this point, I'm not going to judge you either way. I'll encourage you, and we'll talk about the differences in class. But if you choose to use var or let, either of those will be fine here. You could also use const. Var, let, or const, whatever you want to do. For the case that what I want you to do, I'm going to use let. And I'm going to say let my variable equal the string hello. So some callouts here. Here I'm using camel case on my variable, meaning the first letter of the word is lowercase, and the second word, my var, my variable, and maybe we'll call that even my variable, just to show that off a little better. My being the first word smashed into the second word variable where it gets uppercased. This is again called camel case or Pascal case. Something you want to know when you're writing your JavaScript variables as compared to your CSS variables. Second of all, we have hello. Now I chose the best option here for JavaScript, which is single quotes. But this does also work if you use double quotes hello. Oops, open up some Windows stuff here. Double quotes hello. Or I could even use backticks, which is the character next to your one. Hello. Next to the number one. So all of those work and would be totally acceptable. I'm going to use the most preferred right now, just the single ticks for hello. All right, cool. Easy enough. I would call that good to go there. So we'll go ahead and give ourselves a little X on that. Log the variable and the first name of the user with a space. Well, in this case, the user we're playing around with here is actually going to be student. So we'll call that out specifically that this is the user we're working with. So I want to say the user's first name property and this string hello need to be logged. When we say log, what we mean is a console log. This is what prints out into the developer console on our browser page. Again, I would encourage you to use some of the VS Code snippets that come built into VS Code. Now, if these don't work, you may have to double check your settings that snippets are turned on. One of the biggest callouts is when I'm on this page, it should say JavaScript down here in the corner. If it says plain text, check to make sure you have like a .js file, and then you may have to dig into your settings a little bit to find out why JavaScript is not determined and giving you the IntelliSense of JavaScript. If you run into problems with that, reach out to us. We'll certainly walk you through getting that fixed. It should be there by default, so it might take us a minute to debug some of that. All right, so assuming that's all good, I can actually use the snippet log, and notice my IntelliSense says, hey, I have this thing called console log. Is that what you want? Log to the console. And you'll actually see if I hit tab, this is what it's going to create for me. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, tab, and sure enough, here I get my console log. Awesome. Now inside of here, the goal, as stated on line 12 of the instructions, is to log the variable, the one we made. So we'll say my variable, and the first name of the user with a space. So there's a couple ways we can do this. With strings, we can actually use concatenation, where I say plus, and then I have to get into the student's name. I can also do this with another variation. Those backticks allow us to use interpolation. So I could say $ curly curly, my variable, space, and then $ curly curly, and I'll have to access the other variable. Or lastly, one of the really cool and interesting things about console log is if you actually just provide it two variables, it will automatically join them with a space. So the next step comes into how do I get to the student's first name? Well, when we're accessing an object, the first thing you need to do is remember in memory what is available to you. I don't have first name in memory. In fact, if I start to type first name, this doesn't work. And my IntelliSense even tries to help me by underlining it and saying, hey, I don't have a variable called first name. So what variables do I have? Well, that's going to be determined by these consts or the lets. So I have student and I have cart and I have my variable. Well, the closest thing to what I'm looking for is student. So if I say student here, what happens is this accesses the entire student object. But I don't want the whole student object, I want just their first name. So if we remember, how we drill into objects is with the dot notation. As soon as I hit dot, see again where my IntelliSense tries to help me out. So I can hit, oh, okay, sweet. I got student, first name, bam, save it. Let's save it and go refresh our page, see if we got what we needed. So I'm going to go ahead and right click on here, or two-finger click if you're on Mac, and open up the inspector. Come over here to my console and refresh the page. Now, in this video I'm recording, if you haven't noticed, I'm using Edge. So if you're using Chrome, it should be the same. Firefox should be the same. You'll just see a little bit different design and layout over here. It should still be in the console. All that stuff still works effectively the same. It's just, this is how it's working. And if you go, oh my gosh, you're using Edge, we'll talk about this when you come to class. Actually, Edge has actually had quite a few improvements under the hood. So don't get after me for that. All right. So that resolves our printing their first name. That, of course, printed hello Charlie, which is what we expected. Hello Charlie. So that one is now a pass. Awesome. We're chugging right along. So our next goal is we want to create and use loops, log the numbers 25 through 50, and then log only numbers that are multiples of 5. So I'm going to actually pause this video now and jump into the next video, and we'll tackle challenge number 3.